Officer Whitehouse?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is Lieutenant West.
Hi.
All right. I guess because of the illness or whatever, we're going to have to conduct this interview by phone.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if you just hold on 1 second, I got to start recording.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Today's date is May 26, 2023. My name is Lieutenant West. I'm with the City of Warm Springs Police Department, Office of Professional Standards. I'm conducting an interview today with Officer Jessica Whitehouse, also with the Warm Springs Police Department. This interview is being conducted by phone due to COVID. Okay.
Over there, baby. Go that way.
Okay. Now, Officer Whitehouse, are you familiar with Garrity?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so you understand under the rules of Garrity, you do have to answer my questions. Okay, so it's not like the Miranda rights. I mean, under Garrity, you do have to answer questions pertaining to this investigation. Okay, I wish to advise you that you are being questioned as part of an official investigation of the police department. You will be asked questions specifically directed and narrowly related to the performance of your official duties or fitness for office. You are entitled to all the rights and privileges guaranteed by the laws of the Constitution of this state and the Constitution of the United States, including the right to not be compelled to incriminate yourself and to have an attorney of your choice present during questioning. I further wish to advise you that if you refuse to testify or answer questions relating to the performance of your official duties or fitness of duty, you will be subject to departmental charges which will result in your dismissal from the police department. This is an administrative or disciplinary inquiry. You are protected under the Garrity warning and are being investigated for a violation of departmental rules. You are obligated to give statements for internal purposes, and these answers may not be used against you in a criminal proceeding. If you do answer, neither your statements nor any information or evidence which is gained by reason of such statements can be used against you in any subsequent criminal proceeding. However, these statements may be used against you in relation to subsequent departmental charges. Okay. At this time, I would like to question you concerning a report of your conduct at the department. This questioning concerns a violation of policies and procedures. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's what I'm being investigated for?
Yes.
Okay.
So apparently, you have dereliction of duty. Okay, so I guess an abandonment of post. Apparently, you were scheduled to work a shift, and you were.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's the first time I've heard abandonment of post. So if it's been changed to that, then I need to be advised of that, because that abandonment of post is dealing with my post certification. Then that's more of a serious crime, or I guess institute against me, and I'm not going to have my post certification revoked or suspended for abandonment of post, because that's not what happened. That's not what happened. That's not what was done. And the first time abandonment of post has been even mentioned to me is just right now. So I don't know if something's been changed after the fact, but I was in contact with my chief and my captain, which my captain confirmed it. However, the only hookup or I guess hangnail was that I didn't ask for permission. And we'll get into that later, because I was told that I didn't have to ask for permission. I could just say, as a part-time officer, hey, I'm not coming in today. But due to the circumstances surrounding, it was in the middle of my sister's death, centered in between my sister's death, and was due to my sister's death as pertaining to the switch of the days. I didn't go, I don't want to use the word AWOL, because I'm not military. I guess ghost or abandonment of post was not what occurred, because I was in contact with people. And to my knowledge, abandonment of post or something of that severity is where Jessica Whitehouse doesn't call. I don't talk to nobody. I don't let nobody know my plans. I don't discuss it in detail. when that is in fact false. I have documented proof and also recordings from the date that we had our first initial contact regarding this with everybody present. Captain Hearn did advise and mention that we did speak. We did talk about it. He, knew of my plans, but I did not ask for permission. So the only hookup was that I just didn't ask for permission to switch the days. I didn't say, in other words, Mother May, I didn't say, can I do this? But the fact remains that it was known. Maybe I'm confused, but that's how I've always, subjected that wording of abandonment of post is where you don't have any contact with somebody. You just basically go rogue. Rogue is the best word I would say. Where you go rogue, you don't talk to nobody. You don't have. Nobody knows where you're at. They don't know what happened. There was an emergency or situation surrounding it, and that is definitely not what's occurred here. So if something has been changed, and that's what the Warren Springs Police Department is trying to do, is to put abandonment of post and mess with my certification, then I need to know or be counseled on what I need to do to protect my post, because I don't want my post certification revoked or a stain put on.
Okay, well, let me stop you there. Are you saying you don't want to proceed anymore with this interview?
That's not what I said. I'm asking you a question if that's what's being put on.
Okay, well, I'm not going to give you legal advice. That's not within my authority to do so. Okay? I'm here to conduct an interview and ask questions. Okay? If you're going to be uncooperative, okay, because apparently you're telling me that you're disputing all this and that you don't want to get any further in this because you're saying that. Okay, then that's exactly, you just said that.
I said I want to know if that's what's been changed.
Okay.
If that's what's been changed, I need to be advised of that.
Okay, well, an abandonment of post. Okay.
I'm not trying to interrupt. I'm sorry. There's a delay. I guess because I'm on speakerphone. My phone's messed up, so I have to have you on speakerphone. And because we're both on speakerphone, it might be messing it up. I'm not saying I'm not going to answer anything. I'm not saying that I'm being uncooperative. And we can go back and look at the recording that's recording right now. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying that now my level of, I guess, upsetness is gotten there, because at this point, and we can go back and look at all the records, we can drag this on and it can be blown out even more, but I just don't want that. I want this handled and taken care of and being completed. But it can go back and look. I've not had anybody say, Jessica, you're being charged with abandonment of post. My investigation that was advised to me, that was recorded with Captain Hearn, Assistant Chief, the Mayor, and Lieutenant Middlebrooks present, as well as myself, the meeting that we had at the office on that Sunday, was that I didn't do the proper protocol by asking for permission to switch the days. I didn't, nothing about abandonment of post, and that's all I'm trying to bring to your attention, that you're the one that's heading this, is that, hey, wait a minute, I haven't been told that I'm being charged with abandonment of post, or that's the allegation towards me, because that's never been mentioned. The only thing that was mentioned to me on the 11th was that I didn't get permission, which is policy standards, that I didn't ask for permission to take off. However, Captain Hearn was present. He said he did acknowledge, and I have proof. Yeah, we all know that you talked to him. We all know that you told him your plans. We all know that you discussed it. You claim that you talked to the chief. Chief says he doesn't remember, but nevertheless, I did talk to my captain over patrol. He was aware of it. I just didn't ask for permission. I didn't ask for permission. That's the only thing that was told. I wasn't told that, hey, you're being officially charged with abandonment of post. And abandonment of post is something that can carry on for 2 years investigation. And this is all surrounding my sister's death. I mean, the whole thing is correlate. We'll go back to my sister's death, the reason why I switched to Sundays. And I did discuss it with my immediate supervisor, which was my Captain Hearn, because I didn't know Farrell had just in between the transition. He is my supervisor now. But at the time, my immediate supervisor was Captain Hearn. And I did tell him he did know. He did know. So that you see where I'm confused as to why now, after this is going on, now I'm speaking with you and you're saying all these official words. I guess the term is what I'm saying. It sounds a lot more serious and it's leveled up without my knowledge is what I'm saying. So if that's what I'm being charged with, I'm asking, is that what I'm being charged with, abandonment of post?
Abandonment of post, okay, when they say abandonment of post, if you were scheduled to work a shift and you did not show up for that shift, okay, you didn't work that shift, that'd be the same as an abandoning a post. Okay, so if you were scheduled to work a shift and you were not there, you did not work the shift, that's the same as abandoning a post.
even if somebody knew, it's still labeled that?
Correct. It's the same thing. They're interchangeable. If you're scheduled to work a shift and you do not show up for that shift, okay, you're not at that post. That's an abandoned post.
So if you know anybody who you trust that can fix Harley, let me know.
Okay. Also have insubordination. Okay. Did the assistant chief instruct you to contact him?
Yes, and we talked all week through the text messages, and through the week of text messages,
Okay.
it escalated, and my constant would text back, which I want to have this mentioned as well. It's on the other recording on the 11th, and it'll be on this recording as well. It is documented that the text message didn't go through the sequence, and I showed the chief and the mayor one of the text messages where I said, what did I do? Why is this escalating? Why am I suspended off the roster? You asked me for my days off. I told you, can you let me know what grounds I'm being suspended for? The entire time, didn't know that it was at this level, asking him, because that's the way he contacted me, was through text, and I text him back. When I text him back, each time that he would reply, I wouldn't get answered anything. Because the chief wouldn't answer the questions that I was asking, like what I had done. You know, I was trying to be accommodating. I even said, is it something I need to come in now? Because he told me, I need you to come in ASAP. And this is a sequence of events. He said, I need you to come in ASAP. No, let's go back to Sunday. Sunday, he contacted me. He said, hey, did you know you were supposed to be here? And I said, no. I spoke with the chief the weekend, actually the day that my sister died. And then I spoke to my captain over patrol that Saturday, the day before the shift that's in question. I said, so yeah, they're aware. He said, well, who did you switch with? I said, I didn't switch with anybody. Can you help me? Sam, can you? I said, there wasn't anybody on shift. Nobody was there. This is what Assistant Chief said to me. He said, who did you switch with? I said, there wasn't anybody on shift. I said, I come in, I work the day, and the chief had forgotten that I was there. I said that the vehicle ran hot, and I told him that I was switching from the Charger to the truck, and the chief replied to me and said, are you there? Are you okay? Are you up to it? Something to that fact. And I said, yeah, I'm upset regarding my sister, as anybody would be, because, that's a close family member. I said, I'm upset, but I'm staying to myself, and I'm okay. I think I can push through the day. That was on that Sunday. So the following week goes by, and I speak to Captain Hearn. We talked for about 45 minutes. I told him the plans. I said, well, I'm already supposed to be scheduled. I switched. I'm supposed to be off tomorrow, meaning Sunday, the day in question. He said, I think that's good, because I was talking about my sister's death, about the circumstances surrounding it and everything. He said, you need to take some days to grieve and to mourn and to handle family issues and affairs, I'm sure that it was pretty traumatizing. We talked about the death of my family and everything. He said, something to the fact of, probably need to take a couple weeks to gather yourself, because, again, I've had 3 family members die in less than 2 years. And I said, no, I don't want to take that many days. I think I'm just going to stick with my plans on the switching to Sundays, meaning I have already worked my Sunday that I was supposed to work. I worked it the weekend prior. And before we got off the phone, he said, well, you know how the chief to me, you gotta remind him or send him shoot him a text, remind him or something like that, just so that he's aware. I said, okay, I will. But again, I was talking to the captain of patrol, and I told him I would. Got done with my shift, and just had a lot on my plate, and I forgot to shoot the chief a text. So Sunday comes, and handling everything with my sister, which if you want me to go in detail with that, I will, but we'll skip over that if you want me to. But basically spent all day in Lamar County and was at the scene of her death, speaking with her ex-husband.
That doesn't have anything to do with my investigation?
Want to make sure. I can skip over. I just want to make sure.
Okay.
So I spent that. And so on the way to the babysitters to get my children, because I didn't want them around that, as I was doing stuff, reports and everything. So my phone froze up, got to the sitter, and then I took the boys to the park. I restarted my phone, and I got a text message. And it was from the assistant chief saying, hey, did you know you were supposed to be here? And I sent him a text back, was fine, going into detail. And I said, no, this is what happened, this is what I did. And I think I even sent him a picture. I said, I'm at the park with the boys, but, Max. And, hang on just a second. And so, about 30, 40 minutes later, I get a phone call, and I answered it because, I mean, when the chief calls me or the assistant chief calls me, I answered it. So I answered it, and he said, I can't remember how it started, but he said, who did you switch with? And I said, I didn't switch with anybody. And who did you talk to again? Same thing he had asked me in text message. So I told him again on the phone call. I said, I spoke to the chief the day that she died, which was the 21st. And then I spoke to my captain for 45 minutes. This is what I did in Lamar County, went into detail. And then I think he said something to the fact of, he said something like, well, come and see me whenever you get a chance. And again, I had loaded the boys up from the park and was in the drive-thru at McDonald's ordering the food. And I said, a couple times I had to tell him to hang on because the boys were screaming. I said, okay. Like, he didn't give me a date or anything. I just said, okay. And we hung up. So Monday comes by, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, I get a text message and he said, need you to come in as soon as possible. And also your radar log is not been completed, needs to be turned in. I replied back because we had previous many documented accounts between me and the chief and the assistant chief and everybody about, stop saying yes and coming in if it hurts your financials, just come in when you can, or just don't overwhelm yourself or put too much on your plate. If you can't come in, let us know, So I sent a text, and it was very respectful, very nice. I said, I'm so sorry I can't come in, because when he said as soon as possible, it meant like this week. I said, I'm so sorry I can't come in anytime soon, but here's my schedule. What can we do? How can I accommodate? Like, is it something serious? Do you need to come in like right now? Can we meet afterwards or after work? I even said, I think I said something like I get off around 8 or 9. And I didn't hear nothing back. And then he texted me again. Hang on, let me pull it up for reference. He texted me again and said, I just need to know your days off. Let me pull it up. I'm so sorry. He said, I need to know your next day off. Now, mind you, this is the first text message I had gotten from him that said, when is your next day off? So I didn't say anything. I said, I'm pulling it up now. Hang on just a minute. I said, my next days off are, I got massive toothache too, and it's bothered me. Hang on. I'm getting close to it. Says, right here. He said, when is your next day off? Hey, I need you to come in as soon as possible. Can you cover? Your protection form isn't finished. I said, I'm so sorry. These are my dates, 8:45 to 7:45.
402. Unable location property.
Oh, I said I had a school appointment on that Friday. And I said, for the radar, Lieutenant Middlebrook told me to fill out paperwork for my sister's funeral. He mentioned it. We were just small talking outside the funeral home, and he mentioned what I needed to do. And I thought, to my knowledge, I followed everything to the T, what he had asked me to do. So I said, for the radar, Lieutenant Middlebrook told me to fill out paperwork. Is there anything, what I'm missing? I'm confused. Because I thought I did exactly what he told me to. And I said, and even being more accommodating and empathizing, because I didn't know what he wanted me to do, but if it was important, basically showing I care. It's not like I'm trying to, stonewall you. I said, I wish I could come in, but I can't take any more time off from my main income. Is there any way I can complete what's missing online for the radar? I sent it back because it was complete to my knowledge. I said, to my knowledge, the only thing that's missing is basically the instructor part. I said, or maybe send it over to me so I don't have to travel all the way back to the office to complete it, so I don't have to miss my main job.
Okay,
that would help a lot.
But the assistant chief did ask you to come to the office as soon as possible. Have you been to the office to speak with the assistant chief as of today's date yet?
That's not the sequence of events. What do you mean?
Okay. The question was that the assistant chief had asked for you to report to his office, correct?
Correct. And then he switched.
Have you done that?
he switched it and said, when is your next day off? That's what I'm getting to. He switched it and said, when is your next day off? The next text was, when is your next day off? You don't have to, he basically said, I'm not telling you to miss your job, your main job, but when is your next day off? And I said, without any extra, I said, Sunday, May 7th. The next one is Friday, May 12th. And then I said, I'm just trying to work as much as I can. I said, or we can try for the meeting. I can bring the boys after their IEP meeting, the special needs at the school meeting. I can bring them in, because at this point I still don't know what I'm in trouble for. I'm thinking he wants me to come in for the radar. But again, he said, I don't want you to miss your main job. Just tell me your days off. So I did. I replied my days off. And then his next text was, Jessica, you have been taken off for the schedule for work. This is until you come and see me. I told you to come see me your next day off. We had not gotten to my next day off yet. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
The sequence of events jumped. And by this point, I'm like, whoa, how did we go from A to V and the whole A, B, C, D, E, F, G is missing? I mean, you can believe me if you want to. Honestly, I'm just at this point where the facts are there. There's nothing that I can make up or hide or try to twist. They're there. They're plain as day. I said, wow, because I'm like, wow, that's horrible to do that, because you asked me to come in as soon as possible. I text back and I said, I can't, but these are my next days off. He replies back and said, I didn't tell you to miss your main job, Jessica. I didn't tell you to miss your 40-hour job. I told you to tell me when your next day off was. Then I replied, Jessica replies, May 7th and May 11th. And then his next reply to me was, you're off until you can come in and see me. Do you see how that contradicts itself? 3 text messages. It shouldn't have been probably 3 text messages because, even like the mayor said, communication can get lost along the lines. It can look a certain way, but the facts are as they are. There's no gray in between. It's either black or white. I literally said, he said, can you come in as soon as, I need you to come in as soon as possible. I said, I can't, going off of what the orders of the chief himself had told me. Don't miss your main job if it's not something that you're mandated to come in. If we say, come in now, I need you to come in right now, because I would have dropped everything if he said, come in right now. He said, come in as soon as possible. So I replied, it's not going to be anytime soon, but here's my dates. What do you want me to do? Or we can meet after hours, or I can bring the kids. If it has to be like ASAP, I'll do whatever. His next reply was, I don't want you to miss your main job. I'm not telling you to, Jessica. I'm not telling you to miss your main job. I'm telling you to tell me when your next day off is. My next reply was May 7th, May 11th. And the immediate response I got from him the following day was, you're taking off the schedule till you can come see me. Now, I know that I'm not crazy. I know that I'm not just some third person, just intertwined and not thinking clearly, because I've had a lot of time, a lot of opportunity to go over this whole thing, and the sense and sensibility of how things have blown up and how I've been reprimanded and suspended, put on administrative leave, now investigated over something that the base of it, when you look at the base of it, it's the size of a grain of a rice. Now, I'm not saying that I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not saying that at all. But the severity of it doesn't, and I will say this, I'm not going to be who I am. I'm a very honest, transparent person. I stand for what's right. If y'all are being done wrong, I would stand up for y'all. That's just who I am. But to me, in my years in law enforcement, the severity of the actions do not meet the crime or the unjust, hey, slap on the wrist, we don't need to do this, this is where the line got crossed, this is where miscommunication. At no point from Sunday, we went Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all the way up to we had our meeting that Sunday. At no point when it escalated did I get another phone call from anybody else. And had they had called me, I would have answered it. Now, because the chief mentioned that he called me Sunday as well. Why would I answer the assistant chief and not the chief? I said, Chief, I told you I had issues with my cell phone. I didn't even know he had called me. And he mentioned, he said, well, as an officer, it is your standing order that you have to have a working phone. I said, I'm working on that. You can't help where you live sometimes, and you can't help the phone services that you have. But I said, that'll be one of my main goals. I'll get a new phone if I have to. My phone was broke. I just got half of it fixed. Just paid $154. So I'm making changes to make sure that my line of communication is always open. But it wasn't anything intentionally. I didn't go out of my way to try to be insubordinate. He literally started out with a phone call. I answered it. He asked me questions. I answered them. He said, come and see me when you can. I said, okay. And then Tuesday, That's when the text messages started with Assistant Chief. I answered it every time he texted me. I wasn't ignoring him. I answered him properly. When I got a chance at work, I mean, this is all disrupting my work during the week, and I stopped what I was doing. I would contact my supervisor and say, hey, I'm going to be off the board for a minute because my police department contacted me. They know that y'all are important. They know that. But we have a new person, which I've let everybody at the staff know. Ms. Keisha Thomas has taken over, and things are a little bit more stricter. They are. We got a new person in charge. But they've been very accommodating when it comes to the police department. So during this whole time, this whole week, every time the assistant chief would contact me, I would contact him back, and it just escalated. Like, again, I've explained it to my sister. I didn't explain nothing. I just let them have my phone. And I'm not the only one that thinks in the mindset, like, they don't understand where it got hot. They don't understand where the gas was thrown. Maybe, and the people that I've asked, like my sister, who's a school teacher, she's very level-headed minded. You know, I don't think of her, she has nothing. She's like, your school teacher, your average school teacher, very intelligent, Mercer University degree. She read it and said, I don't understand it either. So, again, this whole thing, and then that's when I got kind of upset because I really love this police department. I really love my job. I love being an officer, and I'm always going to stand up for what's right. But I'm like, why am I off as a roster? I answered his question. He told me, when's your next day off? I don't want you to miss your work. I'm not asking you to miss your work, Jessica. So that contradicts itself. So if he had at any point said, I need you to come in right now, I would have just had to take that lick and miss my main income and come in. He never said, I need you to come in right now. He said, I need you to come in as soon as possible. I said, is there any way we can basically work around it? This is what I'm working this week. I'm booked up. Or I can come to you after hours when I get off, or I can bring the boys if I got to. Like, I showed on my end, and that's plain as day. It's right there, black and white. I showed on my end that I was being accommodated, that I would come, whatever way that may be, however it may have looked. I was willing to come. He stopped and he said, no, I'm not telling you to miss your main income. Just tell me your next day off, Jessica.
Okay, so
and then I replied,
since you've had that conversation with him, have you had a day off? Have you worked every single day since that conversation, or have you had a day off in that time frame?
I got brought in and was disciplined immediately after that. You're not letting me. Okay, so I'll get past that because I've already explained that part. He said, you're taking off the roster to this. I said, for what grounds? He never replied back to me from that point forward, and that was on, I'll tell you the last, that was that Wednesday when we had our last contact. I replied, I said, why am I off I don't understand why I'm being taken off the schedule now. You asked me to come in on my next day off. My next day off isn't until the 7th, and this is on the 4th. So how am I going to hurry and change the dates? I can't. You see what I'm saying? So when he took me off the roster, that to me was like suspension or termination. I replied back to him. I said, why am I being suspended or terminated? I'm doing what you asked. You asked for my next day off. I told you. And now you've upped it and said, well, you're taking off the roster until you can come and see me. And I said, well, I can't come. But I told you when my next days off were. This is on May 4th. Okay? Now, I told him May 7th after Rowdy's IEP meeting. Didn't know when it was going to be ending. Just letting you know. But I'll come in, or I'll bring the boys. Or May 7th or 11th, which was that Sunday. Before the day even arrived, the Friday, now this is May 5th at 2:24, Officer Whitehouse. I need you to be in my office May 7th at 1100 hours. You will need to bring your police identification badge and duty weapon with you. Now, May 7th is when I did meet him. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay. So Jessica didn't miss any days. I didn't have a day off and didn't come and see him. This all happened from May. This started on Sunday, April the 30th, on to, he texted me on Tuesday, May the 2nd. We continued back, he asked me, I replied. He asked me, I replied. Thursday, May 4th at 12:48 p.m. Jessica, now you've been taken off the schedule for work. This was to you come in and see me. I've told you to come in on your next day off. My next day off wasn't on May 4th. My next day off was the 7th, right? So the 4th hasn't got here. We're going to go back like we're standing in time. May 4th is in. So I had already told him this is my next day. He never replied back and said, yes, we'll use that day. I had given him an option. I said, which day do you want me to use, sir? Do you want me to come in on that Friday after their meeting? Or I said, do you want me to come in on Sunday? That's my next day off. I asked him. and I didn't never get a reply back. My next reply from him was, "You're taking off until you can come and see me." So that day hadn't come. The day, there was like still 2 or 3 days out. My next day off was. I'm like, what is going on? So then on Friday, May 5th, this is the day that I'm officially off, but I have a mandatory IEP meeting at my son's school appointment, which I said I would provide evidence of that if y'all need that as well. But I said I don't know when it'll end. We were there for officially 2 to 3 hours, but I had offered prior in the week that I said I'll bring them with me after their appointment if you want me to, because I still don't know what's going on, what he's need, it just got urgent and it got quick, like urgent, quick, severity, like really, really quick, and I'm like, where is this coming from? Because I didn't know, I hadn't talked to anybody, he hadn't called me anymore, I wasn't missing any days, I will. And so the last message that I got from the assistant chief was on May 5th. Now, mind you, this is the day that I'm having meetings, so it's not officially my day off, but I said, I'll come in if you want me to. He doesn't say come in. He just says, I need you to be in my office on May 7th at 1100 hours. Now, May 7th gets there, and I showed up. So I didn't ever not show up or do any insubordinate or whatever the charges that have been put on me now. He didn't say come in on the 7th, and I didn't show up. He said, come in on the 7th, and I showed up.
Okay. All right, and then I guess you wanted to file a complaint against him?
I'm scared to do that because I feel like this is, I don't want my police certification taken from me. I'm scared to say anything because when I said something about this, I said, because I reached out to Captain Hearn. I said, and again, I wasn't involuntarily trying to drag them into it, but panic and chaos and misunderstanding and just confusion, straight confusion in the middle of mourning my sister hit me like a train. I'm like, what did I do? What did I do? I've never gotten in trouble like this out of the police department. Like, I'm like, did I miss something? Did I do something I don't, in the middle of mourning my sister, did I do something and I'm not aware of it? Like, what's going on? I reached out to Captain Hearn and I said, this is what happened from A to B. I even sent screenshots to Captain Hearn and reached out to Middlebrook and I said, I let Captain know. I let my captain over patrol know. We agreed, we talked, we laughed, he calmed me down some, talking about my sister taking some days off to like grieve because I went straight back to working instead of taking time off to grieve my sister. And we left the conversation very good. And prior conversations I had with my captain, he said at a part-time agency, you can just say, hey, I'm not coming in today, and really don't have to go out of your way like I normally am. I will bear all and go to the end of the earth to show and verify and make whatever attempts or what goes on in my life valid, because I have, just being at the police department was falling before people not believing me, go through that battle. And Captain Hearn said, you don't have to do that. You just have to let us know, hey, I'm not coming in today. Now, if it's a constant issue where you're not available or you're not doing your duties as an officer, yeah, that's going to be a problem. But every now and then, you don't have to sit there and get a written permission, hey, can I take off? You just tell them, hey, I'm not coming in. So let's fast forward. I didn't know that my sister was going to die. I didn't know it was going to be a traumatic death. I didn't know that there was going to be things around her death and that bothered me. So when I talked to Captain Hearn, I'm thinking I didn't do anything wrong because he told me I don't have to have it in writing. As a part-time officer, all you ever have to do is just let somebody know. And that's exactly what I did, Lieutenant West. I let him know. Now, did I go back and contact 2 or 3 more people? Did I shoot the chief a text to remind him? No, I didn't. And I admitted that in text, in voicemail, in recording, that my captain said, hey, you know how he can be, just so he's aware, shoot him a text if you don't mind, please. Like that kind of demeanor, back and forth, nothing like, this is an order. Hey, will you do me a favor, shoot him a text? Because I know I'm aware of it, but will you shoot the chief a text? And I said, yeah. Did I drop the ball on that? I sure did. But did it surmount or even come close to all that's been done to me so far and how I've been treated by Assistant Chief? No, I don't think that. I don't think that's anything I've done.
So how is this?
I don't.
How has the Assistant Chief treated you?
Before he got here, the chief said, not when I say locker room talk, I mean unofficial. We're not on call. We're not doing anything official, but just in the police department or in the patrol room. Hey, just FYI, you need to have your stuff together because when he gets here, he don't tolerate that. I'm like, I have, because as it's been documented, the crap show of the FTO program, how it was just like all over the place, everything that was going on from one order to the next, just mass confusion of, hey, you got to go through this FTO program. We don't like it, but tough, like my mom used to say, tough titty said, kitty, but the milk's still good. You still got to go through it. We're changing our FTO program. It's not going to be like this, but we're sorry, but you just got to push through it, right? So, in saying that, the chief said, you need to make sure you have your stuff together because when he comes, he's hardcore. I'm like, have I not shown progress? Have I not shown since of all that? He's like, oh, yeah, I'm saying. You've done exceptional. You have risen above, and you've really shown what you're about and what you could do. He's like, I'm just telling you. He's a stickler. I don't remember exact words verbatim, but it was something like that. Again, it was like locker room talk. What I say is locker room talk is something that's not official. Public is not around, and you're being yourself. It's a very relaxed environment. That's what I mean. So when he showed up, everything was fine. We had a good relationship starting out, I believe. And then like some of the things that he would do or say, it's like when he got in the office and got his, I don't know if it was stuff through Georgia, Virginia, wherever he came from. When he came to Georgia, when he got his stuff accredited, he started being in the office more, and I have that documented. I have it all documented. I would be contacted every day. If not every day, it was every other day. Some of the times I was being contacted. I'll give you an example, one that really bothered me, and this all ties back to just the demeanor of how he has treated me specifically since day one. And I've expressed that. I've expressed that many times to the captain and to the chief. I talked to the chief after hours about it. One in particular was a draft report. I wasn't done with the draft report. It was about the water hose. I don't know if you're familiar because you're not in the office as much as we are, but it was a water hose. A tenant had put water hose on and flooded the neighbor's yard. She was being a disturbance, basically. There wasn't any damage to the property. The water had dried. Water doesn't cause damage unless it goes under the house. I did an extensive investigating on that. I knocked on doors, asked for ring doors. I went all out, worked on it for 2 weeks, right? But each time I'd do a supplemental, enter it, attach it to it, do a new page, meaning that the report wasn't finished. I had not finished it for the higher-ups to read it and turn it over to investigation. I hadn't even got that far because I was still working on it, and the main complainant was dragging her feet about turning in her supplement. I didn't want to finish anything without her doing that. So assistant chief contacted me. He said, need you to come in and as soon as possible. And at that time, I was going, okay, yes. I know for 3 weeks straight, I was coming in almost every week, almost every other weekend, or every weekend. So when he asked me to come in, it was a Thursday, the day that I get my hours, my last day to get my hours. I actually lost, I think, $80 that day because I come to Warm Springs. I get there. I come to the chief's office. He said, I'm not the one that called you in here. The assistant chief did. So I walk in there. I say, yes, sir. He said, you got a report that needs to be fixed. You did some things that I don't like and need to be corrected. And I'm like, is it the accident report? Which one is it? Okay, I'll go. And I got my laptop, pulled it up. And you know how the kicks back note? As soon as you log in, it kicks back notes, and it says case number 123 ABC. It'll have red, or on the side partition, it'll tell you what is missing, whether the date, the longitude, latitude, whatever. I have kickbacks from the chief and Lieutenant Middlebrooks before, and so I know from experience, even though I'm not very privy to it and been doing it long, I know from experience if you get a kickback, it lets you know. I logged in, there wasn't anything. There wasn't anything. I didn't see anything that was red. I didn't see anything that was kicked back, notes, nothing. So I brought the laptop into the chief's office. I said, I don't see anything. He said, and I know in sense looking back, like I probably aggravated him, but I was trying to hurry so I could get to work and get the solution, get everything fixed, make everybody happy, and go on about my way. He said, go in there and ask him. He's the one that's got the problem with the report. So I brought the laptop back in there to the assistant chief, and he couldn't pull it up, he couldn't pull it up on my laptop. He's like, well, here it is. He turns around in his chair at his desk. He already has my report up. He's already got it open. He said, it's this one. So I clicked on it, and I said, that's the draft report, sir. I'm not done with it. He said, well, you see where you got capitalized ring doorbell camera. Just that little piece of sentence. He's like, it can't be capitalized. I said, oh yeah, that's definitely a typo. I wouldn't have capitalized that. I said, but I'm not done with it. And, I'm sure there's plenty of errors and typos in there. But, again, I'm still working on that report. And to my knowledge, as a law enforcement officer, and up until this point, if it's a draft, that means that there's going to be errors. You're not done with it, right? It's not your masterpiece. So he said that doesn't need to be in there. And I didn't say anything. Obviously I was frustrated because I said, did I really have to miss my main hours today? And I can't get them back. It's done. It's over with. Did I really miss them for a draft? So I didn't say anything. I did what he asked me. I'm trying to do it. Well, because he was logged in, I believe, it wouldn't let me correct it. Again, he turns around in his desk. He says, I'll take care of it. He backs it out, corrects those 3 little words, and said, all right, it's completed. So just from my aspect, single working mom, part-time agency, like I'm trying to make everybody happy, and I come all the way there finally because the computer prior to this had been logging me out. Miss Dina had to keep resetting it, and it was just giving me issues that week. All that's documented. Nothing that I did intentionally or was trying to go out of my way not to get the stuff done. But I finally found some time to rush in and do this. Come to find out, it wasn't that serious, and it didn't have to be taken care of. Like, I even talked to the chief at 9:30 that night. I said, can you call me when I left? He said, put 2 hours down. I said, will you call me? Actually, I got a text message. I sent a text to the chief. I said, will you call me? And I expressed my, not anger, just kind of agitated. I said, I don't understand why this is so heightened. Like, this needs to be done now. I just, we got other lives going on. We got children, and I've got it a little bit worse than the rest of the crew. I'm doing it by myself, Not that I'm wanting not to be accommodating or helping, but just like small stuff that can wait, unless it's like an order. Like, a little bit of consideration of time, because sometimes I think that gets lost, not on purpose, not intentionally, but sometimes I think that gets lost because if somebody, all they do is warm springs and they're at the office and they're looking at something, they want to take care of it right then, right there. It again, not intentionally, but it doesn't cross your mind. Well, she drives an hour and a half to work, just to work every day. She's got to work a 12-hour shift up there, dealing with mean Atlanta people, writing tickets in the heat, And then when she gets done, she got to beat the traffic. They're not thinking of that. They're my number one priority, I guess, needs to be taken care of now, right here, right now. So I discussed it with the chief. I said, I'm just a little agitated because I had a miss. He explained to me, assistant chief had gotten the whole thing wrong to begin with. He said all he wanted me to do was to submit it. And I said, well, I was told and trained under Eddie that you don't submit it unless you're done with the draft. He said, I want to see the updates as they're doing it. He said, just at the end of the supplemental, you need to put not completed or still in progress or draft. I said, okay, well, I know that from now. He said, that's the whole thing. Because, he's made that very clear to me. If the assistant chief comes to you about something, it's because I've asked him to. That's not what I have the issue about. What I have the issue about is the way that the assistant chief comes. Like, the problem that he produced to me that day specifically, I'm just telling you one incident, was not addressed to me the way that I think the chief would have handled it, or how you would have handled it. You would have said, hey, I just need you to hit submit, or hey, do you mind if I hit submit? Because that's all the chief wanted. All the chief wanted to do was to see the report. He could not see the report because it was still in draft mode. But the assistant chief, and he's very aware of this, so this is documented too, and I know for a fact what I'm saying is 100% true. We discussed it at length. He said that's not what the whole thing was. I said, well, I didn't get the miscommunication. Assistant chief did. He took what the chief had asked him to do and turned it into ring doorbell camera. And it's something that he fixed and did while I was standing there. I didn't have to actually come in and drive and go out of my way and miss hours. It was something he could have done, because I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Why would the assistant chief make me do all that? Just for something silly like that, and something that he did right in front of me, my own 2 eyes. And he's like, no, that's not what I told him at all. He said, I told him I wanted to see progress of the report. I wanted an update. And in order for that to happen, the report needed to be sent in, bad and all, errors and all. I said, okay, well, that's not a miscommunication on my part, chief. That's miscommunication on assistant chief's part. Furthermore, the way that he communicates, he said that is because y'all know that I like to text, but I'd rather have phone calls, to be honest, because you can understand somebody's intuition and how their demeanor is through phone calls. That gets very lost in text messages. So text messages can come off that you're being a butthole, but you're really not, you know? And
Right. So what is your specific complaint or allegation regarding the assistant chief? Because apparently you have
this week, how it started, or that not this week, the week after my sister's death, and I'm trying not to gloat or go on about it, but again, I hope that what I'm trying to say is getting across to you, because I mean, it didn't make sense. It still doesn't make sense to me how it elevated. He said, hey, he contacted me on Sunday, which I didn't have a problem. I explained everything. He asked me questions. I answered them. He said, come in and see me. A couple times I had to say, hang on. And our chief said he was there and heard all of it too. So you can't deny that you didn't hear me at the drive-thru ordering kids food and the boys screaming. A couple times I had to say, hang on a minute. But we ended our conversation on a good note. He said, well, just come in and see me when you get a chance. I said, okay. Yes, sir. We hung up. Monday came along, did my work day, got done, got home at like 9:30, got the boys ready for bed, off to school next day, at work Tuesday, and I get that text message. I needed to come in ASAP. Now, I'm going back to what my chief had told me and what my captain and Lieutenant Middlebrooks, we had the alert training. That was our most recent grub public about it, I guess. Jessica, you need to stop coming in, running to the office. Like some of these times you came in, we didn't ask you. Well, you didn't, but there are a couple of them you did, and a couple of them, Assistant Chief made it seem like it was like detrimental that I do. No, if you can't do it, start telling us no, Jessica. And I mean, on my children, I'm not lying. I have no reason to. So when this came up, I didn't had any idea that it had anything to do surrounding switching days pertaining to my sister's death that week, and I had no idea. I thought it was about the radar thing. And that's why I was so heavy on my text messages, like, can you send it through voice? You know, is there something can I do it after work? Can we meet? You know, is there something you can send me over email? Can you ask Lieutenant Middlebrooks what I did wrong? What did I not do? Because I was following his instructions, like, oh no, what can I do to help? Because I'm slam booked from Tuesday, from that standing point until Friday. However, when Rowdy gets out of his IEP with his PSY therapist with the school, don't know what time, sir. Don't know what time. However, if it's that important, because I know the radar is a time consumption thing, you have to do it within a time frame. However, if I have to bring the boys, I'll come in. That's like how accommodating I was being to him. My problem is that I'm at that point thinking, because he mentioned it on Tuesday about the radar not being completed. And so I said, is there something we can do? Again, accommodating what days, I told him hours, what time I got off. His next reply was, I'm not asking you, Jessica, what do you not understand? To me, that came off very, like I was a dum-dum. What do you not understand, Jessica? I'm not telling you to miss your 40-hour job. I'm not telling you to miss your main income. I asked when your next day off was. No, you didn't. If you go back and look, and again, I know that's through text message confusion. Your point doesn't get across, but it's fact. There's nothing that I can twist or manipulate. You go look at the text messages. It just says, can you come in as soon as possible? I replied, when? Here's the thing. What can we do? And then his reply was, I'm not asking you to miss your main. I'm not asking you. I'm asking you your next day off. And my reply was, May 7th, May 11th. And his reply was, well, you're off the roster until further notice, so you come and see me. And then my reply was, what? What did I do? Now, I will say this. The chief did tell me, he said, that it doesn't mean you're suspended when you're taken off the roster. Now, again, my years in law enforcement was starting in Lamar County. When you're taken off the roster, to me, that means suspended. To me, that you've got something wrong, you've effed up really bad, you're in bad trouble, timeout. I'm like, my sister just died. I let my captain know, we talked. My sister and chief called me, we talked on Sunday. The assistant chief reached out in text messages. He basically went, I said, yeah, I'll come in when you want me to come in, basically. And now I'm off the roster. What the hell did I do? And I didn't say that to him. I wasn't disrespectful at all. I said, what did I do? Why am I off the roster? And because I was confused about asking questions like, what did I do wrong? What is this about? His very next text was, I need you to be in my office on May 7th at 1100 hours and bring your police identification, your badge, and your duty weapons. And that was a big blow. Because when he sent me that text, I carry my badge. I mean, my gun's important too, but my badge and my ID card is my pride. I worked really hard to get it back and to get back in law enforcement. I overcame a hell of a lot that a lot of people would have been taken down. They wouldn't have fought the way that I fought, and they wouldn't have survived the things that I survived. But I worked hard for my badge, and I carry it with pride. So you say I'm off the roster. I ask what I've done. What can we do to fix this? And then the next reply is bring your stuff in. Now, I came on that date. I was on time, actually early. I stood in the hallway. I didn't even go in the patrol room because I felt that alienated, like I wasn't part of the family anymore. We go in there, we speak to Lieutenant Millbrook, the chief, the assistant chief, and the mayor. We're in there, and I started crying. Yeah, just like I did now when I talk about my badge. It's important to me. I carry that with valor. That's my honor. Oh, I felt like I was stripped of it. And again, all this circles back to me switching to Sunday. That I absolutely, positively, without a shadow of a doubt, let my captain of patrol know. He even suggested that I leave that day. He said, well, you go home that day. I was like, no, I'm going to finish, because I think it was around 9:30 or 10, and I only had to work before that day. I said, no, I'm going to finish my shift. He said, are you sure? I said, yeah. But yeah, I think you're right, Captain. I do. I'm not going to take many days off. I said, but I'm going to stick with my plans on switching Sunday. Because I need a day to just, like, reset. You know, I haven't had a chance to warn my sister. I went back to work. Like, I agree. I fully agree. This is my captain over patrol telling me this. And then he said, I need you to shoot text. And I didn't. That's and to me, and I'm not anybody with any stripes, any sergeant, any superior authority of anything. But my years in law enforcement since 2009, but an officer since 2013, my years in law enforcement, when I look at this and I step back because I've had time to calm down, I've had time to evaluate what happened, how it happened, it still doesn't make sense to me. It seems like overkill, if that's the word that I can place, overkill. And because I made a complaint against the assistant chief immediately, not even 12 hours later, and, you know, Maria is my divorce attorney, but she's also a very close friend. Her daughter was actually at Rowdy's graduation yesterday. My son graduated pre-K after 2 years of struggling. He graduated. We're close. I explained, I said, hey, they were talking about counselor. I told her about what the stipulation was. She said, you know, kind of seems like, you know, you something happened. There was a misunderstanding, and it's kind of been like angry, like just like dark. I'm trying to think of words to try to say. I said, does this seem like I can't speak freely within my department? It's something I believe is being done unjust. Like I can't be, hey, I don't like how he's been handling things. But can we make it that, you know, my captain is my captain or my chief is my chief? You know, there's a communication because I don't have any problems with you or the chief or anybody like that. We communicate very well. Me and Captain Tom are like two peas in a pod. Like, he just has a way with communication, and he does very well. He can calm me down. He can make, even if I'm in trouble, I've gotten in trouble by, you know, whatever it may be, and Captain Hearn has done it in a way to show progress. This is the reason behind. He's just really good at mentoring and advice and being someone of authority. And I've done, and you can ask him, I've never had any problems with him. If he's said, hey, go do this, I don't have any problems. But for whatever reason with Assistant Chief, I don't know if it, I don't know. I don't want to say anything and it be taken left field because I don't want this blown up.
So what exactly is your complaint as far as the Assistant Chief? What is your complaint on the Assistant Chief? What's the complaint for?
Well, I don't, the allegations that I guess he said I abandoned my post, that I didn't come in when I was asked. But again, we can go back to it again.
Okay, so that's your complaint. Your complaint as far as the Assistant Chief is because you don't think his allegations for abandoning the post is correct.
Yes, sir. And then
Okay.
also,
Is there anything else? Is there any way that he treated you different than any other officer, or I mean, what is your specific complaint as far as it relates to the assistant chief?
I have been put out by him, I guess, is what I would say, because I've even been told that Captain and they've had a discussion about, hey, for instance, I'll give you another one, gas receipts. When we were at the roadblock last, as a matter of fact, I think you were at that one. When we were at the roadblock, gas receipt, I had one missing, and I had a serious situation going with my sons at home. And I had just been contacted with Assistant Chief that Monday. So this is on a Tuesday or Wednesday. Hey, need you to, it was just like something every single day. Instead of doing it, basically what I'm saying, on our time, like our part-time time, or can we come to a middle ground like you do, or like Lieutenant Middlebrook, or like the chief, or anybody else? They'll be like, hey, when's your next day off? He doesn't do well with communicating, and I don't know if it's just me, but I've brought it up many times that I don't understand. Because if you say, Jessica, go stand in a corner and count to 3, I'm very good with that. Like, it's direct. You tell me 1, 2, 3. I'm very good with that. But if you're vague and there's a lot of assumptions or, I guess, attitude, well, she didn't do what I asked, so I'm going to get on to her more. I don't do well with that because I feel like that's unfair, and I don't think any department should be ran that way. I'm not saying that he's doing that specifically, but whatever the communication, that's where I don't agree with. I don't agree with the communication style, how he's done it. I communicate well with others. I communicate well with my captain. My captain has even had to say, y'all stop. Basically, I'm going off a whim here. This is not verbatim. Let me put that on record. It's not verbatim, but y'all stop. These are simple things. You're coming after one gas receipt. Well, Middlebrooks has got 6 of them. Middlebrooks, where's yours? Chief, you got 5. Chief, where's yours? You know, like, give the girl a minute down. You know, that's the kind of vibe. And then my sister died, and it just seemed like I didn't even get a week to grieve before the crap started up again. Like, that's how I felt. Basically, like this. I'm at the office. I'm at One Springs, and I'm just going to focus on Jessica and find something else. I'll give you another example. It was spring break week, the 4th, and Captain called me. He said, are you home? And I said, no, me and the boys are going to go get something to eat, but I've got to work in the morning, get up early morning. He said, I hate to ask you, but is there any way you can meet me with a laptop? We just had our banquet. And I said, sure. I mean, well, actually, the boys are out of school this week. I said, Rowdy's got an eye appointment on Thursday, which is 2 days later. I said, I have to go in late Thursday anyway. I said, can I just bring the laptop in? We got 7 or 8 laptops, right? And he said, yeah, I agree. It's not that serious, big of a deal. I mean, what are the laptops for? For patrol. He said, but the captain and the assistant chief, no, he said the assistant chief has been not, I don't know, I don't want to say hounding because it's not what he said, but he said something like they've been calling him, contacting him about Jessica needs to do this, Jessica needs to do this. He said, so will you do me a favor? Because I'm just get it done so we can move on to the next thing. And I said, yes, because the way again, Carl could say something that I might not agree with, but it's how he communicates. He does it efficiently. He does it in an understanding way that's reasonable. And I said, yes, sir. Even then, at 9:45 at night, I drove all the way through Woodbury, met him. I didn't meet him at his house. We met at a barn. I guess that's the street he lives off of. Talked to him some more. He gave me a pep talk. I said, look what I'm doing. This is 9:45 at night. Just because it's at the forefront of his head, and he just can't let it go, can't relax. It's something that's got to need it done now, need it done now. I said,
who is this?
This is the captain, me and the captain talking about, Jessica needs to do this. Jessica needs, and there's not been other officers, just Jessica. So that night, this is not what I'm upset about. So that night, I was upset that I had to be out at 9:45 at night. And as a matter of fact, I reached out to Middlebrooks, and I've been it because me and Middlebrooks have known each other for a while, and I said, you don't have to. He didn't reply. He just listened to me. It was the ear to listen to me vent. I said, I'm so frustrated. I'm so tired. I've worked all day, and I just had to drive all the way, like going toward Columbus, to return this laptop. When we've got 7 of the laptops, I even said, hey, can we come to a middle ground? Can I come in less than 2 days from now and bring it in? No, it had to be done that night. I said, so I did it. Not even 3 days later, or 4 days later, she called. I was in the shower. Dina sends me a text. I'm like, okay, I look at Dina's text, and it said, hey, can you bring that laptop in? My blood pressure hit the roof. I'm like, are you kidding me? I drove my gas and had my babies laid out that night, and it's been returned. It's been sitting in the office for 4 or 5 days. It's been sitting there. But instead of calling my captain and saying, hey, that thing that I kept saying, hey, did you get Jessica? Hey, did you get Jessica? Hey, did you get it? Or did you know that it was there? Come to find out, captain had already told him, hey, I got the laptop like you asked. I met her late last night and got it. Here it is. It was sitting at the office. But assistant chief and the chief, one of the, I don't know which one, I'm not there, but they were just like, you need to come in and return it. I didn't have it. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
It's just severity. And I know that I'm mumbling and everything. It's just when you got a lot going on and it's supposed to be your fun place and it's supposed to be your outlet, your personal time. I know that sounds sad, but my police department is something I carry pride in doing. It got to the point where I'm like, God dang, if I come in, if a letter is off in a report, I'm scared to do anything, because if I got a letter off in the report or an exclamation point in somewhere it shouldn't be, it's going to be insisted or persisted that I come in during my work week, and I'm thinking about my financial, like I'm going to miss hours, just perfectionist, front of the line, just constantly just honing in. And there has to be some base to it, Lieutenant West. There has to, because they had a meeting about it. They had a meeting, and for a little bit, things calmed down. I didn't get any calls from the assistant chief. I didn't get any texts about anything. Not that I wouldn't welcome it, but, during the week, it's kind of a hectic week. And like the captain explained, this is a part-time agency. This is where our duty lies. But at the end of the day, it's priority. People's family life, their children, and it's not that I can't have this in my life. It's not that I can't juggle it. But when it comes to things that are just not so life or death situations, I guess, you got to think about what they got going on. Well, what did they go through that day? What about my officer? How was my officer doing? I know her kids are probably about to graduate. She's probably got a bit, just a little bit of accommodation and stuff like that. That's my main, and I've made that known. And I guess my words are saying he's done something arbitrary where he needs to be nailed to the wall. That's not what was insinuated. But
okay, so you're let me get this if I'm correct. What you're trying to tell me is your problem with your complaint with the assistant chief is that you don't like his communication style, and he's not very accommodating.
Yes.
Okay.
Basically.
Okay.
Nothing like to the nail, but I was so upset at this point because you see, let me just ask you, because I know that this is it's on record. It is professional. There is no side note on this, but what I'm asking is, are my statement in words and the sequence of events, because I'm looking at it black and white on my phone as well. And I've asked others. I've asked my lawyer. I've asked my sister. They all see the sequence. That's another thing that my lawyer, I skipped over that, and I apologize. The therapy thing. I had a close family member die. I've already started going back to counseling at my church because they offer it for free. And then after the 6 appointments that I get for free, they'll charge like $30 or $40, I believe. But they'll watch the boys while I'm in there, and I can have a session. I like the church. Okay. I understand that when we had our alert training, and that's when the chief and lieutenant spoke to me and said, you need to prioritize. Don't put us first. We're part. We're here. We're not going nowhere, Jessica. You don't always have to come running. We're sorry that, we made it seem persistent, that it was number one priority. You need to come in. No, we're not telling you don't say no. If we say come in, no, I'm not going to come in. But if it's something like anything that assistant chief has called you in for, that 1 month was really bad, the month of March. And I could have to pull up the calendar, but I can document it for you and send it to you. It was like every damn near day, I would send my sister a text and say, I got to go back in. And my sister, just talking to her, that's the only person I have really. My sister would be like, what now? That kind of vibe, like, my goodness, you got other stuff going on. You can't, why is he, like, just on you, you know? But going off of what they said, they gave me a girl's number or a guy's number for a counselor and said, she'll talk to you, she'll meet you, she'll drive out. We know you've been through a lot. You've had more than half of your, this is before my sister died. You've had more than half of your family die. You know, you've dealt with a lot. Reach out, maybe she might help you, or they might help you. I said, okay. I took the number. Not even a week and a half later, my sister died. So, of course, I'm going to be upset about my sister. I didn't have time to grieve. Most people, especially at a part-time job, they don't come back to work. And that was my fault. I probably should have said, hey, I can't come in at all. But I was trying not to leave the staff empty-handed. I wasn't trying to disappoint the chief, because that's what I care about, is his opinion of me. I was trying to do a good job. And I should have said, no, I can't do it. But instead, I tried to come in, and all I wanted was a little accommodation. Hey, I'm going to come in and work, even though she just died 2 days ago. I'm going to come in, switch to Sundays, power through this week, and then the week after her death, you know, I'll take that Sunday off to do what I got to do. And then the minute that happened, I feel like that I was trying to get some accommodation or communication on doing what they told me and advised me to do. If you can't come in, tell us you can't come in. If it affects your financial and how you feed your kids, no. You damn better put your kids first and your children first. We're not saying to be insubordinate, don't come in when it's an emergency, but simple stuff like that. Tell us the truth, Jessica. Don't be so back bending over. Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, because that's what I've been doing since up to this point. The very first time that I say no, I'm sorry I can't come in immediately, but, you know, I don't want to miss my main work, but can we work around it? I get a text, when is your next day off? I'm not asking you to miss your main job. I replied my next day off. The next text from him, you're off the roster. You know, the way that it came off to me was, you're in trouble. Here's a slap on the wrist. I'm like, what the hell did I do? What did I do? And when we had our meeting on the 7th, I came in like the assistant chief asked me to. I was there at 10:50, wasn't late. He gave me an order. I came in my very next day off, like he ordered me to. I brought my badge and my gun, my ID. I handed it over to Middlebrooks, and I left. We had that meeting, and I was upset. I was emotional. Yeah, because not only had I had a death that I hadn't dealt with yet, my police department that I thought was my family was mad at me, and I felt like was overly punishing me. And I got really upset when I found out that I was being doubly punished. I said, what am I being doubly punished for? He said, you're getting administrative leave, heading the outcome. I said, so I could be terminated? He said, possibly. I said, wait a minute. Wait a damn minute. I didn't do any drugs. I didn't get arrested. I didn't violate somebody's rights. I didn't overly use my power. This was concerning a very sensitive situation as a part-time officer. Some would even label misunderstanding. This is a little severe, don't you think? Well, and it was almost like, well, since you want to say you didn't like how his style of handling it, and you want to complain on this with the chief, now we're going to put an investigation on you. And even my lawyer, that's what I was trying to get to, I'm sorry, my lawyer, Maria, on a non-record status, I'm just getting her legal advice, like, hey, do I need to be worried about this? Because I still have an ongoing issue with my ex-husband. He looks for anything. She said, it looks like basically you tried to tell him that you felt like you were being not like bullied or centered out or not handled correctly or handled differently from the others. And they basically, within 12 hours, said, well, we're going to investigate you, basically like a retaliation. She said, that's not what I'm worried about. What I'm worried about is that they put it in writing. You were unstable, basically. And I said, well, no, that's not what they said. And Maria said, well, if they're saying you have to seek legal counseling, I can't remember. I got the write-up. It said something about has to have it in writing that I am stable enough to endure. She said, what is this all about? Why are they saying that? Because Ronnie, the minute that Ronnie even gets a whiff of that, he can go and have a, preliminary emergency hearing to take full custody. And in those situations, the judge grants it immediately, whether it has a tiny grain of salt or not. And my lawyers advised me of this, and that's why I basically live in fear, because anything, I don't do anything wrong where that isn't intent, but, you know, for instance, I had three or four defects call outs to my home in December. He hasn't seen the boys since December, but that didn't stop defects from coming to my house. You know what the claims were? That I duct taped my children, and I said, defects, do you have photo, witness, anything? No, I don't. It immediately got thrown away. You know what they started calling it? Harassment. And so they had to basically say, we're going to start screening it. So it's not that I'm making this up in my mind, that I'm crazy. I think the world's out to get me. I've actually dealt with legal repercussions surrounding my children. So my lawyer said, that's the thing that I'm worried about, because he could use that. She said, you need to make it clarified. Is this public record? Not the files if I talk with a counselor, because I'm already talking to one. I'm just not using the one that the department has tried to give me. But she said if there's anything on file, he gets a whiff of it. He could go get open records, and just that flat partition that says, or the front page, it says, seek counseling, cannot return to duty until deemed fit. She said that's what I would be concerned about. And so that upset me even more. I'm like, wow. I mean, I'm a human being. Anybody's going to be upset. If their sister died, anybody's going to be upset. If their police department suddenly just like flipped the switch, basically, just went from understanding there when you need them to basically, I felt like nailing me to the wall. Oh, you want to complain about us? Okay, well, we're going to come back after you, and we're going to look to your record. That's why I contacted you the other day, and I said, are we going to go back? Because a couple of times when there was confusion during my FTO, Eddie had dropped the ball, and I say that with sincerity, and I don't mean it bad, but Eddie had dropped the ball on a couple of things. I brought it to the captain's attention. Captain brought it to the chief's attention, and Eddie got actually in trouble or talked to or reprimanded. I don't know the end of it. That's not my duty. But there were some things that didn't align with my training. I said, wait a minute. There was one time I got wrote up during FTO, and the chief was there with me. The chief was working a movie set with me, and Eddie had wrote me up for coming in late that day. And me and the chief stood side by side, shoulder to shoulder, all night guarding movie equipment. So when Middlebrook handed me the write-up, you can call him and ask him, I said, I don't agree with this one, but I'm not going to be insubordinate. I've never been insubordinate. I've never not followed full command from any police department unless somebody asks me to do something illegal. Even if I don't agree with it, I'm going to do what you ask me. So I think on one of the write-ups in my file, it actually says, I don't agree with this write-up. I was working with the chief. He was aware. He knew about it.
And again, I'm not privy to that. It had nothing to do with my investigation, so I don't know anything about that. When I do investigations, I'm looking at specifics. Okay, so when I conduct an investigation, I'm conducting an investigation on a specific matter, and that matter, and you've told me about that before, and I'm telling you right now, I don't know anything about your FTO program, your FTO paperwork.
I was just worried that was going to be combined, because at this point, and I still feel that way. I still feel like, because how dare I say something about the command staff when all I'm trying to do is, because if I was doing something wrong, Lieutenant, and somebody said, hey, this is how we want to do things, and it would work better this way, there's obviously a bump in the road. There's obviously a problem with communication between these two, just because of someone's title. And I would hope that you would feel this way, too. Just because of someone's title doesn't give them the right to treat someone differently, right? And if somebody says, hey, I feel like I'm being treated differently, and that's ignored, and then, oh, well, you think I'm treating you differently? Well, now we're going to investigate you. I still feel, and this is what I'm saying, standing right here, right now, I feel like the end result will be termination or something on my post records where I'll go through a 2-year investigation through pure fucking hell. And I'm sorry to curse. I apologize. I didn't mean to. But I do not, without a shadow of a doubt, with all of my heart and soul, don't think any of this justifies a 1 to 2 year investigation through post-investigation, because I won't be looked at. It'll be a scar on my record for the rest of my life, and I have not done anything to vilify or justify the severity of that. I didn't just walk away from that post and say to myself, screw Warm Springs, I'm not talking to anybody. I spoke with my captain for 45 minutes. I think you should probably go home right now. Whitehouse. And I said, no, I'm going to finish my shift today. Yeah, I agree with you. You need to take a couple weeks off. No. He was encouraging me. My captain was encouraging me. He's like, it'll be here when you get back. Just gather yourself, get things, what you need, grieve your sister, do your little investigating on your end, close those loose ends up. He said, because you're not going to feel better until you find out what actually happened that killed her. You're not going to feel better until you top, because I'm not going to get into that, but there's been 4 or 5 different timelines and stories that my sister's husband has given. And even concerned my sister, who is 47, very level-headed, never even had a speeding ticket before, school teacher, that is your Mr. Rogers next door persona. She even said something's not right. There's some things that she still hasn't told me, because she knows that I'm very outspoken. If I see something being done wrong, I'm going to speak on it. I'm not a sheep when it comes to that. So speaking with Captain, he was like, I agree. You need to switch the dates, stick with your plan on keeping this day off, not coming in. But just do me a favor, shoot the chief a reminder. And I didn't. But it wasn't that I didn't talk to my captain. I didn't discover, deliver, and discuss at length. And he was even persistent about, well, you probably need to take a couple weeks off from here. Do what you got to do so that you can maintain your support system for your financial, for your kids. But as far as this is a part-time agency. This doesn't come first. We're going to be here when you need to come back, basically. And so, yeah, that's how everything happened. So when the text message, I don't know if he took it the wrong way, that I was trying to buck him, but he shouldn't have, because I'm going off of what the chief and my captain said. Hey, put your foot down. Don't always try to over-accommodate and compensate. You don't have to extend and stretch yourself out that far. If you're working that day, and that's the last day you can get your hours in, hey, tell us. And that's exactly what I did. Do I talk too much? Do I explain? Do I go above and beyond with every detail? And it aggravates the piss out of y'all. I know that. But on any given day, I would rather somebody telling me what they did that day, how they tied their shoe, what they felt when they did it, than have somebody say, oh, no, and leave you blank and empty-handed. I would rather be an oversharing person and transparent with you so that you know I am a walking book, and at any given moment, I can tell you my life story, and I don't have anything to hide, Lieutenant. I don't. That's how I've always been, and I know that I'm at fault for over-explaining and going off on some tangents. But again, that's just the way that I've coped. I've dealt with a lot. I don't want there to be any shadow of a doubt of what kind of person I am, and most importantly, what kind of officer I am. And I believe that's why I was hired, to be honest. I feel I've been told many times by everybody, been through a lot. You're a tough girl, You could have went left or right, but you kept pushing, and we're proud of you for doing that. But, we want you here, but you keep running yourself ragged, burning both ends, you're not going to be here, Jessica. So the first week, in the middle of my sister's death, I feel, and this is just me being honest, I feel like that the chief got a pause, or felt that she's not going to come running. I felt like that maybe he felt that way, and that's not the case at all. I was just going off of what middle road sense. Heck, you've even said sometimes, you got to rest, you got to prioritize, you got to get sleep. Nothing bad, just being an ethical, human, compassionate person. If you can't come in and it's stressing you, it's too much on your plate, tell us. Just explain. And see, that's where I'm at fault. I over-explain. I don't do it to be mean. That's just what I do sometimes, and I'm trying to work on that. I over-explain. I don't think that Chief does well with that type of communication, but y'all are used to it. When it comes to me, y'all are used to it. And I don't even know if he even cared to read my text messages. I don't know. But the level of intensity of how it just kept escalating, and how each time I was like, well, what did I do wrong? What am I having a stroke right now? You asked me my next day off. I told you. That next day off hasn't come. So when we had our meeting, I was going to bring that up as well. We had our meeting. The chief was mad. He was fiery mad. If you can watch the video, he was outrageously mad at me, and you could tell that it wasn't just standards. It was an emotional, I guess, disappointment and anger, like toward the whole thing, like that I had told the assistant chief I can't come in right now. And there was a couple of times he said, well, I was standing right there and he told you to come in ASAP. And I said, well, I'm telling you, I was in the drive-through line at McDonald's. My kids were screaming. Had he said, I need you to come in on Monday, I would have said, can we? My immediate response would have been, well, I get off at 7:30. Is there any way I can meet you at 8:30? I know me. Y'all know me. I would have said that. That's not what was said. Chief said that he told me on the cell phone on Sunday, he said, come in and see him or contact him. And I said, I'm telling you, we're reporting. That was in front of the mayor and everything. I said, I'm telling you, look me straight in the face, Chief. I was on the phone with him, and I was in the line. I know, I heard you. I said, well, good. You heard both of my kids screaming, and you heard me trying to order their dinner. So just step back from the situation. Maybe there was a slip-up. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. Maybe he didn't hear the assistant chief say, contact me Monday. But from the point that he started contacting me again on Tuesday, I never missed a beat. When he would text me, I would text him back. When he would ask things of me, like my next day off, I replied back. I didn't even go into detail. I kept it short and sweet. And then, like I said, it just kept escalating and getting further and further. Well, you're off the roster, and so you can come see me. And then the following text was, come in on the 7th, which was a day that I gave him with my next day off. And I came in. We had the meeting. We were there for like 4 hours. I got upset. At one point, I was hyperventilating because I was up. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't that I was upset that nobody was siding with me. It was upset because I felt like, why am I even here? You know, this is something that gravely been done wrong. Like, I would have expected that I crashed a patrol vehicle and ran over somebody, you know? And then when he said you're administrative leave without pay, I didn't understand that because I don't get paid unless I'm there anyways. So, you know, it just felt kind of like a double whammy. I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I'm thinking that's it. No, I got hit with another thing that said once the administration leave without pay, you have to turn over your ID, your badge, and your guns. Once that's completed, then you get suspended 3 more days. And once that suspension's over, then you have to provide proof that you went and talked to a counselor and got approval that you're even stable enough to be an officer. If I wasn't stable, y'all wouldn't have hired me. But the fact remains is that I had a death in my family that is still unanswered. A lot of questions are still unanswered about it. And I think that I'm right to say anybody would be upset. I don't have a partner like y'all do. I don't have a support system at home other than my 2 children. I have my middle sister. That's about it. But I don't have somebody picking up the kids and figuring out groceries or diapers. And I feel like that's lost a lot when someone is unsatisfied gets mad. And the person that mostly does that is the assistant chief. I think that assistant chief doesn't understand some things that the chief tells him. I don't think it's done in a mean way. Chief says that they talk all the time and that everything comes from him. So I'm just confused because I know the chief. I feel like I know him well enough to know that he's a good man. He's got a good heart. He's a good officer. He's a good leader. And everything was cool and gravy. I was doing good. Everybody was proud of me. And then the assistant chief guy here, and I don't know the guy, so I don't have any naysay against him. I'm the type that you're in your lane doing your thing, and I am too, that you're cool with your gravy, you know. But it got so bad in March. I want to say March was when it got really heavy. The calling every day, every other day. Just constantly something. And then let me mention this as well. I was told that by Captain that from the gas receipt forward that there wouldn't be any more calling every day or every week about coming in or needing something, that it would be, they would be contacting Captain Hearn because he was over patrol. This is what Captain Hearn told me. He said, so, hang on. He said, so if it's something that needs to be handled or taken care of, they'll contact me, and then I will get the direct orders of what needs to be done, sort of like the laptop situation. He said, and then I'll contact you. So I was like, wait a minute. When all this happened with my sister Michelle, and the last contact I had, it was understood. Yes, I was at fault for not sending a reminder to the chief. I had been told by my captain, I don't have to go into detail. You don't have to do all that, Jessica. Just tell them I'm not coming in. Don't make a habit. Don't make it an everyday thing, because you're here to work. But if you just feel like not coming in one day, hey, I'm not coming in, as long as you let somebody know. And I did. I let my captain over patrol know. I let him know. I honestly did. So I didn't understand why. Maybe the captain was in training, because I think that he was that week that all this happened. But the minute that it started, that's when everything kind of just like escalated, and I just feel like it stayed to what I had been told by my captain. Hey, if they want anything like the laptop, they'll call him, and then we'll do chain of command. That's the word I'm thinking of. Sorry, chain of command. And we're going to operate that way. I said, great. I think that's a good idea. That way I won't be answering different people. I won't have 5 other people I have to remind or text or contact. Just have one person, because I work good in those kind of situations. Instead of talking to 5 people, I only have to talk to one. I know that if captain calls anything, and you can ask him anything that the Captain Hearn has ever asked me to do, yes, sir. I don't second guess it. I do what he asked me to, and he'll tell you that. There's never been a problem with me and Captain. So I don't know what happened, but Captain wasn't aware during this whole situation, because I did reach out to him. He's my chain of command. I reached out to him. I'm like, what did I do wrong? Like, I don't understand. And he kept saying, y'all just need to communicate. Y'all just need to talk. Now, again, I'm not saying anything verbatim. I'm just telling you the synopsis. He's like, I said, well, am I crazy? I'll let you know. He said, well, you should have let the chief know. You should have shot him a text. You know you were wrong in that. I said, but I don't understand why I'm being suspended, do you? And he's like, no, because I don't know if he wasn't included, the captain. I don't know if he wasn't included, but I don't understand why we skipped over the chain of command of what I was told we were going to do, and then to have somebody not answer me back, not tell me what, basically, you're being suspended off the roster because you didn't come in ASAP. Well, you told me I didn't have to. You told me I didn't. I'm not asking you to miss your main income. Come on your off day. My off day hadn't got here yet. In the very chance that I was given my off day, I came in. I did everything. But at this point, my badge had been turned in. My ID had been turned. You see what I'm saying? I know I'm probably... I really, truly, from the bottom of my heart, I hope that my point and what I'm trying to say is getting across. Because it's just so simple, black and white to me, and I'm not saying it as what the assistant chief has painted me in the light. She didn't answer me. She didn't come in when I told her to. That's not true. That is not true. And and even the mayor said, well, I don't like texting and stuff like that, because translation basically could get lost. The meaning and demeanor behind it can get lost. I don't know if he took my text and got mad that I wasn't immediately jumping the gun and coming and running, but I was just doing what my chief told me to do. If you can't do it, just tell us. And I told him, I even said, trying to catch up, assistant chief, really trying to get, and you know what, Lieutenant West, the past 3 weeks, guess what I've gotten every week? And I haven't gotten this since November or December of last year. I've been getting 39, 40, 41, and even 44 hours. Like, I've been working up to getting my normal routine so that I can have a steady income. I know at the end of the day, Thursday, that ticket job in Atlanta, I might hate it with a passion. I might want to do movies, but that's why I even stepped away from movies, because they're not sustainable. They're not like every day. I would love to do the movies. That's a lot less on me. Instead of having to walk 6-7 miles a day, I hate that job. But even Captain Hearn was like, I'm proud of you, because he asked me, he's like, are you getting your hours in like you need to? Are things financially leveling out? I said, yes, sir. They're getting a hell of a lot better than they were. He said, good, I'm proud of you. So I feel like this whole situation was a misunderstanding. I don't feel the justification of it blowing up like it did was justified. I don't feel the communication and how it was handled to begin with was correct. If the chief had been reached out and talking to me, instead of going through the assistant chief like he said he did, I feel like this wouldn't have gotten to where it's gotten. I don't know if the assistant chief just doesn't like me. He has a thing of, I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know, because I don't think anybody else has a problem, but I know that, I mean, I know we got females now, but before that I was only female. I don't know. Some people can't work good with the opposite sex, you know, the male or female, but I've always worked around men, so they're like brothers to me, you know. I feel like I'm one of the team, you know. I don't feel like there's any barrier that I can speak to any man, any woman, and not have an issue. But I don't know what it is about Assistant Chief not liking me, but he just doesn't like me. And I feel like that has emotional feelings as far as disdain for me. And this is just my opinion, has crossed over to the workplace. Maybe the chief is telling him things, and the way he's processing it, or what the chief is actually asking of him, because, like I said, I've already proven there's been a couple of times chief asked him to do something to contact me about. It wasn't the correct thing, i.e. the water hose report. The whole thing wasn't even about the exclamation in the capitalization. The whole thing was about the chief just wanted to see the report. But not at one time did the assistant chief tell me that. So again, that's where the miscommunication. I think he's taking little pieces of what the chief is saying, and then like, okay, I'm going to go do. But I just, am I making sense? I mean, I know you can't answer that.
So I think you've pretty much gone over everything. So probably at this time I'll go ahead and conclude the interview if you're okay with that.
Yes, sir. Can I ask you, so they did explain that this could result in termination or marks on my record, not my police department job, but the actual post.
Okay. I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
And then that's not in the realm of my responsibility. I don't have anything to do with that. So
I just don't want my best with.
Okay. I mean, I can't answer anything on that because that's not part of my job. I have nothing to do with that aspect of things.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and conclude this interview. The time now is 9:20 p.m. on the 26th of May, 2023.
Yes, sir.